Hello and welcome to Over the Wall, a new podcast focusing on the goings on in the Chinese scene, featuring me, Dan Offen, aka Mr. Big Jams, and my regular guest and co-host, LeonArthur DOTA. Leon, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. Hyped to talk about some Chinese Dota for sure. How are you? I know you're good too, because I saw your tweet of a streak of win games.
Yeah, it's less impressive
Nice
when
one.
you see what's off the screen, which is just straight losses.
It's all right. You just want to look at the good stuff.
Very much so, which is what we're going to do today. Well, good and bad. Let's kick off by talking about the mood in China following TI. It's been obviously from the outside perspective, I would say it looked pretty good. Three Chinese teams in the top three, a Chinese team in the grand finals. I know Chinese Dota fans have high expectations. Are they pleased or disappointed after the international?
Oh, this is a tough question. I mean, for sure, I think everyone there initially was very hopeful, knowing how strong LGD have been, and the way LGD lost was just obviously it was very disappointing. And I think this pain is very similar to the TI8 pain where LGD was also in the same position. They were so in commanding decision to win, in commanding position to win the whole thing, and then they just scramble in the grand final. I think this might be just a pressure or mental block that they have to go through because it has been so long since Chinese lived in ages, right? It has been 5 years at least. So there's a lot of expectations on them. And honestly, this one, I think this is as hard as the TI8's one. I think everyone is taking it very, very, very sadly.
Is that feeling isolated to the fans, or is that amongst the players and managers and staff as well? Do people feel that changes need to be done to improve?
Oh, I think so. I think after every TI, because China, if you look at the scene as a whole, they are their goal is always to form that one team that can eventually represent China to get everything, to get to lift the ages back. That is always the goal. They are never look for just I'm gonna create this team to top eight or top three. It's always the ages. So I'm sure a lot of teams are undergoing some adjustment right now. I think for now, the only one that is unchanged, that will be unchanged, is LGD. Other than that, I believe all the other teams are probably looking for adjustment.
Let's talk about those adjustments in a sec, but let's go to LGD first. Obviously, they were one of the most impressive teams at the international, probably the most. They didn't win, but they looked pretty great throughout. Is that going to be completely unchanged? We've heard that the players aren't changing. Is Zhao Eight sticking with the team as well?
Yeah, this is totally going to be unchanged. I think it's a good decision because they have obviously. I think all of us here can acknowledge that they have what it takes to win the entire thing. Maybe mental block there is some downfall of them, but I'm sure people would still agree that they are one of the most dominant team in TI10, and I don't think that fact is going to change. I think this painful experience is just going to make them feel better and get into the next season even better as well. Because I look at the post status of what White said, and then they have this very tough team talk after the loss, and then all of them were very quiet until the one guy. I think the manager was the one that is very sad, and then he was sad because his concern is that can the whole team stay together to fight for another season? And then initially it was very quiet, and I think it was Y or Fifth Band that came out the first that says that if you guys want to do so, I'm down for this. I'm willing to go for another round. And then everyone says yes, they do think so too. So I think this bond is gonna make them so much stronger than ever.
Following the loss in the international, what we saw in the Western scene on Reddit was a lot of chat about Zhao Eight's kind of status, his gambling stuff, and a lot of people talking about possible throws and stuff. Is that actually as dominant a narrative in the Chinese scene as it appears if you're watching from the outside, or is that kind of not that well considered?
Oh, I think initially it was quite a huge topic in China, and it lasted for quite a long time actually. I think it was about like 1 week, and then after that LGD came out with a public statement saying that they will be taking legal actions against whoever that is spreading fake news. So I think LGD they are starting to take control to control this thing. Especially there is no hard proof and there's no hard proof and evidence whatsoever. So right now, what what is happening in China is pretty quiet. I think people don't really talk about that anymore. People have switched their focus to the shuffle news. So yeah, people don't really talk about that too much now.
Let's do a little bit of analysis then on LGD because I watched them in the upper bracket of the playoffs. I thought they were one of the best teams I'd ever watched. I thought they were incredible, and I thought they'd been incredible across the season. It did seem odd that final loss. Is it? You mentioned earlier the expectations being weighing quite heavy on them. Do you think that was the fact, or what ended up going wrong for them in your opinion?
I think before agreeing into the grand final, so once again, I'm quoting from Y. This is what he said on his post. So before that, I think they went into the series with a lot of respect, even though I think everyone knows that LGD everyone thinks that LGD was the better team there. But then they went into the series, so they decided to try out this IO strat that they have found success with. But then in the game itself, they make a couple of unorthodox adjustment with the Ursa and stuff like that because they already have a few choices of heroes they want to go with the IO, and then they derailed for me last minute. They went for new stuff. Game one it failed because the drafting was a little bit out of the way, out of their comfort maybe. And then second game they were still confident, right? Because they knew that they probably didn't think that they're a better team. They went with the IO again. They got crushed again. So I think at that point when you are super confident in the series and then you go into the game started as 2-0, 0-2, I think that hit very differently. That's probably going to hit very differently. You have to climb from 0-2 to 3-2, and that's a long way to go. You may have the strong mental strength or energy to do so in the game 3 and game 4, but when it comes to game 5, and especially they are running this tiny Lycan draft where there is a huge how do I say, when there's a huge timing that you have to hit, otherwise you just automatically lose the game. I think that's where the stress really kicks in because it makes you feel like, damn, I have to actually end the game at 20 minutes. And Team Spirit, they have already proven that they are a good team, so they are not going to give the win so easily to them. I think that's when they start feeling the pressure, and Team Spirit obviously dealt with the pressure very well.
Yeah, it did feel like those timing drafts. The three losses they had were effectively timing drafts. Am I correct in saying? It felt like there was so much pressure because there's pressure to win and then pressure to hit your timing. From what you know of the LGD players, are they players particularly perceptible to that element of pressure, or is it just an unfortunate time for it to happen?
Honestly, I'm not sure, man, because looking at LGD, I thought before the entire thing happened, I thought they were the kind of team that are so strong until they could ignore all the outsiders, all the external pressure and stuff like that, because they were playing with CL8, and then they were playing in Dota P, they were playing in ESL1, they got very good results, and it didn't seem like all these external factors affect them too much. So to be honest, I didn't think that kind of pressure would hit them so hard, to be honest, until I read the post of why.
Okay, let's roll on to talking about the rest of the scene then. You mentioned, obviously, I mentioned there's three Chinese teams in the top six, Vici and IG as well, and then Aster and Elephant both probably disappointed. How's the mood around those teams? Are there going to be big shuffles and big changes in your opinion?
Yeah, I think so. I think, like I mentioned just now, it's probably only LGD out of all those Chinese TI teams, they are remaining together. For Vici Gaming, I heard that they might be. I mean, I heard that original organization might be running out of cash flow, so
Okay.
they might be having like a new owner or something. That's why there was the rumor of the PYW and DY wanting to leave the organization, right? Because their contract has ended.
Yeah,
So what I heard right now is the Elephant is also looking to make some changes. Um,
you'd
the
expect them
the
to,
the
yeah.
yeah, the latest rumor, oh, this is dangerous. The latest rumor is that one of Vici will go to Elephant, and one of IG will go to Elephant as well.
All right.
Yeah, I can't name names, but I think that is under discussion. It's not something that's confirmed yet, but it's under discussion.
I've heard a lot
Yeah,
of rumors
and
about Eris returning to carry as well.
return to mid, you mean?
Yeah, returning to mid, sorry.
Yeah, to RNG, right? Yeah. I think that rumor was true. Daniel was the one that mentioned this, so it's not me. Uh, yeah, I think that's true. Like a lot of fans have been, doing research on Euros, and saying that look at his current hero pool. He's stuck in EU, so he has been playing a lot of mid. So the speculations came from there, and it seems like in the forum, it seems like that is true.
Are any of those? So you mentioned they're all looking to change, because for me, top six in the international is pretty good. I think IG looked. Do you think IG need to make changes? Let's focus on them first, because they've been a team that stuck together for a long time. They won a major this year. Top six at TI is pretty good, is it not? What do you think went wrong for them? What changes do you think would help the team?
Oh, definitely. So talking about IG, there's an interesting story that I have learned from a friend of mine in China. So apparently back then IG was owned by this one of the richest men in China. His own IG is owned by Wang Sichong. So he was like a billionaire, and then after that he ran into some financial difficulties, and IG starting to not be such a strong powerhouse because they don't have that much cash flow. So that's why they started with this roster that is led by Kaka, one of the most experienced veteran. And then there are four rather new players: Emo, Fly, GT, and Ollie. So this model of running a team surprisingly gave them a lot of successes. They grow from the bottom to the top. They won a major. So now to me, I think the $1 million question is that I've heard that their contract have all ended now, except for Emo. So I think it's up to IG whether or not they can keep their player. More like, do they want to keep their player? It's more like, can they keep their player?
If you were the owner of IG, what would you want to do with that team?
Oh, that's tough, man. I think that I probably want to look into the financial situation also, because yesterday, I believe I saw it on Reddit saying there's a rumor saying that JT is going to secret. And I found it very absurd. Like, where did this come from? and then, matching this with the previous information that I've gotten, IG's only Emo's contract is still with the organization. So it seems like JT will become a free agent. So I guess this didn't come from nowhere. I guess this could be possible.
Do you know JT speaks English? I'm correct in saying. I remember him at the
Yeah,
summit doing quite. So he could move to a Western team. From what you know of him as a player, is
definitely.
that the sort of thing he'd want to be doing?
Oh, I wouldn't say I'm close with it enough to know that. But honestly, if I were JT and Team Secret gave me invitation, I would definitely think a lot about that.
Okay, let's move on then to Vici. You mentioned players moving on from them. To me, Vici, and please tell me if you disagree with this analysis, they had a solid TI, but they didn't really knock anyone's socks off. They seemed kind of good throughout it, but they didn't seem to have a particularly that kind of spark that brings a winner. And that has come throughout the season from them. In majors, they've often been kind of in that solid top 6, top 8 position, but no one's ever been like Vici are going to win this. Would you agree that they're maybe not make weights, but top level people, but not getting to that level, and they need to make changes to hit that level?
Yeah, definitely. I think to a degree, yeah. I think they are always seen as the very resilient team. You know that they are not gonna go away easily. They will always put out a fight. It's just a matter of where are they stopping at. But I feel like top 4 is an extraordinary or way out of expectation of a result for Vici Gaming. And I'm very surprised to know that Vici Gaming, they are not looking to at least keep some of their star players, especially obviously when we talk about Vici Gaming, we always talk about their the support duels, PYW, and DY. So I wouldn't lie, I'm big shocked when I saw that the two duels are looking to go to a new environment, and Vici is not making an offer to ask them to stay. I think this goes back to the potential financial difficulty that Vici is facing, unless they found a new owner, obviously. But yeah, I think for Vici Gaming, if the rumor that I heard is true, one of Vici Gaming's is going to Elephant, then I guess a whole new rebuild have to kick in somewhere. And I do think that they have a very good asset though. Poyoyo is one of the most uprising carry player in China. So I think surrounding Poyoyo could be a very good decision.
Are there players kind of from the depths of the Chinese scene, younger players who are rising up, that you think might see an emergence in this shuffle as top tier players?
Yeah, I do think that there's 3 players that have particularly caught my eyes. Dust and Mian Mian. Dust is a post-2 of Magma. I think Mian Mian, if I'm not wrong, he is from Magma as well. Another one is the Aster Aries position 3 called Seng Shi. Yeah, he has a Chinese IGN called Seng Shi. If you want to translate that, is directly translated as life or death.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think these three players are particularly potential. But it really depends on whether or not they could have a good team because China region is so competitive. I think for you to come out, for you to rise, you first of all you need to have a good team that is at least competent enough to go to major.
Yeah, talking about that competitiveness, it seems like we're seeing quite a lot of Chinese squads begin to form, and from last season as well, that are very, very, very strong. And it feels a sense that it could be anyone's season next season. Now, obviously, PSG.LGD are going to be up there. They're probably going to be one of the top teams from the region. But do you feel that there's potential for a whole different set of teams to see the prominence in the next major?
Mm, yeah, I would say so. Because right now we don't know what is going. We don't know what's going on. But one thing for sure is that we haven't heard any of the good players announcing any sort of retirement
Yeah.
news. So I guess most of the experienced player or the players that are at their peak are still gonna stay and try out for another year. So it really comes down to whether to which organization could actually put out a competing or a competent lineup. Because there's something I want to mention also is that if you look at IG, the model of them of running the team is that they have this veteran that they are leading a few potential young blood, and then you have Elephant, right? A player that is all superstars in their own position. And IG is doing so well, Elephant not doing so well because obviously the expectation level is quite different as well. Like
Yeah.
IG, people already know that they are good. So people are not putting so much expectation to them. Whereas Elephant, at the start of the roster, of the formation of the roster, people are already seeing them as the savior of China.
Yeah.
So there is a different level of expectation and pressure, I think, on them. So I wonder if this story is gonna inspire some of the Chinese organization to maybe shy away from superstars team and instead maybe try to groom some of the new players.
It feels like China's in an interesting position, as you mentioned there, because previously in Chinese shuffles and other regions, there's always been a number of players retiring after every single TR, especially in China. Obviously, players always retire in China and then come back almost immediately, as Fade did last year. But it does always feel like the scene sees an element of regrowth every single shuffle. This time, as you mentioned, we're not seeing that. So, do you think China's going to grow in strength next season in terms of new players entering and old players staying, or for you, is that almost a warning sign that new players won't necessarily get because you mentioned these new players, they need to get into good squads to be successful. If the spaces in those good squads are being kept with old players who aren't necessarily performing at the same level before for their reputational reasons, is that a warning sign for the scene, or do you think it shows strength that there's so much depth?
I think Well, this is a tough question. I think definitely it shows some kind of strength, knowing that all these veterans are going to stay in the scene. And, with this whole shuffle thing going, and like I said just now, I wonder if they will actually put these veteran powers into actually, all right, I'm going to use the experience of mine to groom some of the new up and coming players, other than just just forming a team with all the superstars. So I think it really depends on that. Another thing is that I feel like in China, the narrative is that there is very little new players right now. And I think the fact that some of the Chinese team have been constantly pushing players from Southeast Asia, Singapore, Malaysia, anyone that can actually speak Chinese. I think that actually tells us that Chinese is very lacking in young and new blood right now.
Yeah, that is a concern. Let's talk finally. The only team we've not spoke about in depth from TI is Aster. We've mentioned them in part. I heard feelings that there might be, because you mentioned there's a lot of strength in their younger roster, the Aster Aries squad. Are we going to see those players step up? What's going to be happening with that roster? Because there was a lot of expectations on Aster. They're Burning's team, one of the legends of Chinese Dota. They're a big squad. What needs to happen there, and what will happen?
Honestly, I think Aster is probably one of the most, or if not the most powerful organization in terms of financial. So they could probably get themselves some big names for themselves. But only thing I'm afraid is that the reputation of Aster is not that good in China, especially. And whoever that is joining Aster, they need to be mentally prepared of for them to be put in this microscope to always gonna be the topic of everyone. So I think that to an extent would actually be a barrier of for them to have these players in China. So to me, if I were Esther, I'll probably look towards Malaysia or Singapore as well for some new players. The fact that I did hear that Southeast Asia a mid player is trying out with Esther.
Okay.
Um I don't know what is the specifics that's going on right now, but I did hear that it is under negotiation or discussion. So I think Aster they themselves also know that it's probably hard for them to get good players in China right now. So they seems like they are looking away now.
Okay, great. Let's talk about the lighter side of the things. Obviously, now's been a bit of a break. I know there are no tournaments currently in China. What are players doing at the moment? Is it very much a sense of relaxation? Are people working very hard? What's going on?
Oh, relaxation is something that they definitely are hoping for a lot right now because I know that a lot of the players they're still stuck in Romania.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, some of the TI teams. So I think it has been very tough. Like today, just 30 minutes before, I saw the manager of Elephant posting a Weibo saying that he hates the pandemic because it slows down everything. It slows down everything, and he also responded to the rumor of Elephant as well, the news squad of Elephant. He's like saying how did this Redditors get all this information before me? How are you guys moving so quickly? So yeah, I think it has been really tough, man, because like they have been stuck in there. They are constantly trying to find ways to come back, and it definitely slows down the negotiation a lot. I think in terms of roster changes.
The DPC is only about a month away, less than a month. Is this going to?
That's the
Are people managing to pub? Are they managing to scrim? Because it feels like this is this. Well, normally people ramp up a couple of weeks before, but it feels like now people would want to be getting back in form. Are people pubbing? Is what's going on?
Oh, I know that a lot of players are pubbing, especially DY. DY from Vici Gaming. He is actually streaming on Douyu, the Chinese streaming platform. So yeah, I think all the players they are probably still grinding very hard because, like you said, there's only less than a month away, and I heard that there might be a possibility that the China DPC is going to delay,
All right. Okay.
because of all the players that are stuck in Romania. So I guess we'll see what happens. But I think it's probably likely it is going to delay because there are so many teams that are actually at Romania right now.
Other teams stuck in Romania, are they managing to do anything? Are they just stuck in hotel rooms? From what you know of those players, are they out and about doing anything, or are they very much in kind of quarantine zones at the moment?
I think they are. I think they have they are accommodated by Valve or PGL. So apparently, from what I know, they actually have a safe space for them to still play Dota, to still continue their regular lives. It's just in another country. So I do think that Valve and PGL they are taking care of this player very well.
Okay, great. Okay, just to close up then, let's talk a little bit about the personal stories at TI. Obviously, we hear a lot about personal stories and interpersonal stuff from the Western audiences. I think it's often quite difficult for Western audiences to know what's kind of happening interpersonally in China because we don't speak the same language and we hear much less of them because the talent will tell those stories. Is there anything you'd like to bring up from what happens at TI kind of interpersonally or kind of people's stories that you think people should know about in the Western scene?
Yeah. So I think a lot of stories have been surrounding Aster, LGD, Vici, but the one team that we didn't really talk about was Elephant, in my opinion. I think they are one of the teams that are very I don't know, I just feel that people don't talk to them because their result were so lackluster,
Yeah.
especially in group stage. But from what I know, sorry, Elephant was actually dominating. So there was this post after their loss from ROTK. So he mentioned in his post that before quarantine, before Aster was informed that they are getting positive, Elephant were actually doing very well in the scrims. They were doing very well, and then they had to do this mandatory quarantine for like 2 to 3 days, and right after they returned from the quarantine, everyone just forgot how to play Dota. They were just getting smashed after that, and instantly it went into group stage. So like they just crumbled from there. So it was very unfortunate for Elephant, but nobody really talks about this thing. I think when people look at the teams that are affected by COVID the most, we'll always look at Aster. But I think Elephant might be one of the biggest loser as well.
What do you think that might have been?
Honestly, I'm not sure. Like they were quarantined for 2 to 3 days, and after that they just from dominating to getting crushed. I'm not sure what happens in between. Maybe all of teams they just magically got improved a lot during that 2 to 3 days. But I'm not sure. But there is something about maybe that I want to talk about. Like this guy, I think, is probably one of the most underestimated player, because maybe it's a guy that. So in China, there are only two players that are given the nickname of Emperor. So one is the famous Emperor 8 from Xiao 8, and another one is maybe. So people call him Emperor Mei in Chinese. So in China, so and maybe it's this guy that he doesn't really, he would before TI he will underperform, and I heard that maybe it's the kind of player that in China there's this thing that the mid players from different teams, they would make a date for a 1 versus 1 practice matchup to get better, but maybe would never go to that. Yeah, but maybe it's the kind of player that he would always grind it up before TI. So before TI, when they reached boot camp, maybe when everyone's in the team is hitting 10k MMR, maybe it was like 8.9k. Can you believe that? It was like 8.9k.
Wow.
So everyone is just like joking at him, laughing at him. And then when he went to the boot camp, he hit 10k at the boot camp.
Wow. That's
So
great.
that is like a 1k MMR gain. And this is the sort of player maybe is. Like in China, people always call him the kind of player that perform and will always dominate in the big tournaments. And I think this is something that is very, very rare for a player.
Why do you think that is? That because what you're implying there is that he's not necessarily lazy, but there's a degree to which he doesn't only turns it on when he feels he needs to. Is that the case, that he doesn't necessarily work that hard outside of things and then shifts into gear?
I mean, obviously I don't know, because everyone has a way to control their own energy. But for maybe I just think that he's so talented that he has this switch that he can turn it on and off. And when it comes to crucial tournament, he'll just turn on the switch and he'll be like, he has never been away. He has never gone before. So I think this is the kind of very rare qualities that could make someone a champion. And this is actually one of the top. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
And I think this is one of the topic that has been coming up in China as well. Like, do you actually want to start looking at players whether or not they are the kind of player that can show up in big tournaments? So I think especially when all the China teams, they are looking to lift the edges. So I think looking at players this way might be very helpful for them.
That's interesting. I wanted to talk about ROTK as well, though. He's one of the people I've always been slightly fascinated by. When he got brought into Elephant, everyone basically said that he was going to be their disciplinarian and he was going to make them a squad that competed very effectively. That didn't necessarily happen. Do you think there was a degree to which he softened? Was he very angry with them? Because he seemed, in that losers interview, he seemed very emotional. Talk about a little bit about him and his moods.
I think for RTK, he has always been kind of an emotional person. Like he's very passionate, has the emotion as well. So in China, I think people, I don't know, like, because RTK, the most successful time of him is that he brought Vici Gaming from a minor champion to a major champion.
Yeah.
I think that is like the legendary storyline that RTK has created alongside with the squad. And ever since that, RTK has this tradition where after every major tournament, if they lost or win, he will post a very long post and talk about what happens in the tournament.
All right. Okay.
But then, yeah, but after several losses, people start to take it as his action to actually sweep the blame in a case, and people start to be very look at him at a very critical degree and saying that his draft is always very predictable. He's not very innovative because he doesn't play rank himself. He doesn't really grind a solo MMR himself. That's why the team is always very predictable and not moving forward. So I think ROTK, he's the guy that he loves speaking out, and that's why he is also getting a lot of criticism in return. And I think he is definitely taking it where I think I'm just sad to see him taking in so much criticism because he has definitely proven himself before. But this TI, like we say, Elephant was doing great before. The storyline could be completely different if the quarantine didn't happen.
Do you think he'll stick with the team?
I guess so, because to be honest, the coaches like RRTK and Xiao8 and even 357 and Fenrir, they're so rare in China. Like there are a lot of veterans, but not everyone has the kind of respect and also the resilient, I think, the mental strength to actually coach a good team to bring them to TI, because it is a very stressful thing. So I do think that RTK will still be a very valuable asset to the team or to any other team that's interested in picking him up.
Great. Okay, I think we can pretty much leave it there then. Thanks so much for joining me today. What's coming up next in the Chinese region then? Is there any key stuff that we should be looking out for? Is it just the end of the shuffle and then start the DPC, or are there any little tournaments or things that people can check out over the next couple of weeks?
Not that I know of. Not that I know of. I guess it's because most of the players are still at Romania, so there isn't much point to host a tournament right now. So I guess the next thing will just be the DPC, and of course the shuffle that everyone is very excited of.
Great. Okay. Where can people follow you on Twitter if they want to hear more of your insights in text-based form?
Please, you guys can follow me at LeonArthur DOTA.
Brilliant. Okay, well, I can be followed as always at DanielOffen. We'll be back in 2 weeks. My next normal podcast will be back next week. But thanks so much for joining me, Leon. I will speak to you very soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.